Shiva
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Sutra-43. I am not the body. Nijadehe sarvadikam yugapad bhavayed vyat nirvikalpamanas tasya vyat sarvam pravartate. The sacred space should be recognized in one's own body. Let the mind dwell on this space. Let the mind bring the directions of the space together and dwell on it. The mind is liberated from vikalpa and is established in this space. The sutras 43 to 49 are about Akasha. Akasha is the mystical element among the Panchabhutas. The attributes of Akasha are taken as example to understand the nature of consciousness. Akasha is about spirituality and intuition. It is recommended that Sutras 43 to 49 are studied and assimilated together. I will discuss some practices as we go through the sutras. The Shastram says that our body is a sacred space. This sacred space makes the body a temple. In a temple, the Garbhagraha is the seat of the Devata. The temple's heart is the Garbhagraha. The sacred space in each of us is our heart. The heart is the seat of the Purusha. The Purusha is Bhairava. The Vedas say, Angushtamatra Purusho Madhya Atmani Tishtati Ishano Bhutabhavyasya Natado Vijagupsate Etat Vaitat. Bhairava is totality. Totality means all pervasive. Where do we understand the totality? Firstly, we need the mind to understand the totality. For example, there is power behind our eyes which enables us to see. The seat of this power is the eye. Similarly, the seat of the mind is the heart, which is our very own center. This heart is the space known as Daharakasha. This is the seat of the mind. The mind's attention should be turned towards this space to recognize Bhairava within us. This is the heart or the Garbhagraha in the body. This heart is not the physical heart, but the sacred space within us. This is our own center. If we pay attention to this sacred space, we will not keep any unwanted furniture here. This sutra says, dwell on this space in your very own heart. Nijadehe sarvadikam yugapad bhavayed vyat nirvikalpamanas tasya vyat sarvam pravartate. The sacred space should be recognized in one's own body. Let the mind dwell on this space. Let the mind bring the directions of the space together and dwell on it. The mind is liberated from vikalpa and is established in this space. Nijadehe, in the body, sarvadikkam vyat bhavayet. Vyat is space. Let the mind bring all the directions of the space and dwell on it together. Yugapad is together. Tasya vyat sarvam. By dwelling on one's own space this way, the mind is liberated from vikalpa. The disciple is established in this space. Nirvikalpamanaha pravartate. This is the sacred space in our body where the infinite Bhairava consciousness or the Bhairava Atma can be recognized. This space is Akasha. The Shastram says that Atma is like a space. This is just for comparison. The mind cannot understand the infinite principle. The mind can understand only when boundaries are laid out. Space is generally taken as an example to compare with the consciousness or turiyam, so that the consciousness principle can be easily understood. The Shastram says that Atma is like this space. The space is infinite, and so is the Atman, which is infinite. The Atman is invisible, and so is Akasha, the space which is invisible. The space accommodates everything in it. The space holds the entire world that we experience. Similarly, the Atman is all-inclusive. The space itself is in the Atman. The space is subtle. The Atman is subtler than space. The space is pervasive, and so is the Atman. The space is formless, and so is the Atman. Hence, the Shastram says that Atma is like the space. The Sutra says, recognize this space in your body, in the Daharakasha, your heart. Let the mind dwell on it. The space cannot be divided, and so is the Atman. A potter, for example, creates hundreds of pots made from clay. Once the pot is created, the space is available inside the pot. This is the same space that is outside the pot, but the pot seems to be dividing the space as inside and outside. The single space now has become two spaces, as inside and outside space. If there are several pots, we say that there are several spaces. The single space has become many. How can the total space be divided into many? The many itself is an illusion. The sacred space that is inside our body is not different from the space outside. The single or total space has become two spaces, as inside and outside space. If there are billion bodies, we will say that there are billion spaces or billion Daharakashas. This should be an illusion, isn't it? When the numerous bodies are born, space is available in each of the body as Daharakasha. It is for us to recognize the Daharakasha inside us and then understand that the space inside us is the same space outside us. The space is total and seemingly appears as many. If we have a 5-bedroom home, we say that there are 5 spaces, but the space is only one and total. We have divided the space just for our convenience. Ask yourself a question. The Daharakasha that is inside my body has appeared out of the total space. From where did my body appear? The body also appeared from the total space. We saw this in Sutra-43 that Akasha appeared as the first in the creation among the Panchabhutas. The other Panchabhutas, Vayu, Agni, Apaha and Prithvi, appeared out of Akasha. Tataha Akashaha Sambhotaha Akashat Vayuhu Vayos Tejaha Tejas Apaha Abdya Prithvi. The body is made out of Panchabhutas. The body is Panchabhautikani. This means that the body itself appeared from the total space. With this understanding, you can now visualize the body too as Akasha. The Sutra says, dwell on this sacred space in your body as the seat of the infinite Bhairava consciousness or the Bhairava Atma. The sacred space should be recognized in one's own body. Let the mind dwell on this space. The Sutra also says, let the mind bring the directions of the space together and dwell on it. How do we understand the directions? Our mind not only divides the total space into many, but it also divides the space as directions. Without directions, the mind will be lost in space. Imagine that you are in the middle of an ocean and don't have directions. You don't know where to go. All around, the ocean looks the same. It is possible that you will panic. Similarly, the mind without directions will panic in space. It needs a support or alambana. It creates the directions to support itself. The directions are like the crutches for the mind, without which it will collapse. Dividing the total space into individual spaces is an illusion. Dividing the total space into directions is also an illusion, isn't it? The sutra says, let the mind bring the directions of the space together and dwell on it. This means drop all the directions in the space and look at space as total space without any divisions or directions. The mind will automatically collapse without the crutches. The mind will be liberated from vikalpa and is established in this space. The sutra says, recognize the sacred space in one's own body. Know that it is the aspect of the total space. Collapse all the directions. Let the mind dwell on this space and dissolve itself. Nirvikalpa manaha pravartate. This sutra is telling us, know it this way. There is nothing called the body. The body itself appeared from the total space. What about the mind? The mind will collapse in the total space without a support. In this contemplation, only the total space remains. This is the dharana. Let your inner space reflect the total space. In the total space, you will recognize the pure consciousness, like how the sunlight is reflected in a full moon. When we acquire this knowledge, we know that the body does not exist in the way we understood. Body is just a word. The truth is the consciousness, the turiyam. Everything else is only a name and form in the pure consciousness. I am this consciousness. I am Turiya Atma.